Okay, so good morning, everyone. I hope I can be heard now. So I was asked by Cypher Learning to share our experience as a university. And so I'd like, first of all, to do little preliminaries. I'd like to greet the president of ABIVA, Mr. George Garcia, and also the staff of the said company. Also, for the first time, I'd like to mention that I've heard of Yuri from Miss Jen Padernal every now and then. And finally, I've seen you at least uh, personally, although of course it's in the net. And the whole staff of Cypher Learning, where we, University of St. Louis of Tuguegarao, got our platform. And my sharing is going to be very quick, although important details, I'd like to alert the participants that we can communicate with each other. I'm one administrator who is always active uh, electronically and otherwise. And that's why I always have to say, even yesterday in our preliminary meetings with the organizers of this webinar, that I'm as excited to share with you our beautiful experiences in our university. Uh, well, especially in the context of flexible learning and our experience over 3 years. We're counting the fourth year with the use of NEO LMS. We are in a situation where we are really faced with the COVID-19. And just like this screen that you see in here now, this is our situation, also telling us the diversity in the world, and probably in the context of our schools, we also have diverse teachers as there are also diverse learners. And interestingly, using mask will always be necessary as part of protocol. And this mask, I'd like to say that after my sharing, we shall have unmasked beautiful experiences with online learning or in general of flexible learning. I'd like to specifically also mention that all our schools have been challenged with different developments in education that are really disruptive. And let me alert everybody that I did share most of this because I was asked by the Commission on Higher Education in Region 2 and even some parts of the Cordillera Administrative Region to share about our flexible learning experience, which others would really like to follow. So again, let me go back that we had disruptive developments in education of K to 12, which we face squarely, and all the school administrators must be aware that indeed it posed so big a challenge to all of us to really adapt to K to 12. And I must say that after how many years, we have survived K to 12. In higher education, we were also faced with outcomes-based education, where many schools, as an assessor, I'd like to inform that many schools would claim they are outcomes-based schools, but in fact, it's a magic outcomes-based education system they're adopting. But of course, this is just to provide you like an information prior to a better understanding of that experience of flexible learning. Well, we were also faced with the fourth industrial revolution and the continuing challenge of the World Economic Forum that all schools must really train students in terms of different skills, like the 2015 before and now the 2020 challenge of the World Economic Forum, where our economic and education leaders mentioned and identified all of these skills that are necessary to be developed in schools, no, as early as the foundation years or in basic education. And then there was coronavirus. We had this COVID where, well, the big challenge is, of course, one of those that are really affected, one of those that is affected is, of course, the school sector. And well, I'd like to share with you these realities in the Philippine schools brought about by this COVID. And so, number one, many schools, both basic and higher education, were quote unprepared for the pandemic. When the government declared in March ECQ, or that quarantine, the first impact, well, many schools were troubled. How will they continue with the education of the students, especially those who shifted their academic calendar? Like our case, we start in August and end in December, and we start in January and end in May. And so we had like 3 months left for the semester to be completed at that time. But I must say it is a blessing because more than 3 years ago, we decided to adopt a learning platform that eventually we realized it was indeed a blessing to make that good decision after a benchmarking we did with De La Salle Dasmariñas, where at that time, Jen Padernal of Cypher Learning used to be connected. And eventually, as I've said, challenged by the fact that there are differences among academic leaders. Well, the vice presidents may not agree, or the deans will not agree, but as VP for academics, I was really persuading them a lot. And well, I brought with me the president of the institution at the time to De La Salle University and see for ourselves how Neo LMS was used by the said institution. And so the rest will be shared to you in the next slides. Number two reality, in the absence of online learning resources or ready resources, for DepEd schools, they made a formula by retaining the last term or the last grading period, and that was like the third grading grade, to be the fourth grading period grade. Well, CHED for its part, at the start, really advocated already the concept of flexible learning. And I'd like to alert everybody that USL has been advocating flexible learning all these years. Number three, some schools opted to pass all students, give a grade of P or an F for pass or failed, which affected other students' points of view. For a while, even our own students in college were also pushing us that they will all be passed. No one will be failed because of the pandemic. But again, we cannot sacrifice quality. It's always been our trust. It's always been our byword that quality should not be used, should not be sacrificed. And again, we really have to sit down immediately, even while it was really difficult to travel at that time because of the ECQ. We really made it a point that we were able to meet, because at that time there were no Zoom connections with us yet, and it will really be impossible really to really travel and go to school and meet. But eventually we made a way. We are proactive, and we quietly did our assignment and eventually shifted and made it a way that all policies were really ready in time for the immediate implementation of flexible learning. Another reality, some schools opted to go also for online learning, in which they left to the teachers the mechanics on how to go about it, and hence full academic freedom was afforded to their teachers at the expense of the students, because some teachers would have their advanced deadline, some would not be very considerate, or probably some would give a test anytime that they want, which is of course very difficult to do. Some would have free platforms, some would want just the easy way out, other platforms go to Messenger or probably go to Facebook. Another reality is few schools had to continue using its online learning platform. And in our case, we are really blessed, as I've said, and let me reiterate that buying or subscribing to Neo LMS what was really one of the best and the biggest decisions that we have made so far as a university. Well, some attempted to use the free ones, but I'll be sharing to you why is it that it would not be advisable to have the free ones. Well, we have more of advantages that we use the paid version. And I'll share that as I go along. Now, and probably the most difficult part, I can just imagine the many school administrators listening to us in FB Live. Because you see, even with other school administrators in the country, we exchange notes. Some schools are closing because, well, again, there are no jobs for parents and they cannot send anymore their children to school. That's very sad. But probably we are more sad to hear that there are schools that are also closing. Either that they're not ready to face the new normal, or probably because in their locality, only few students are enrolling. Well, let's take a chance to look at the impact of COVID in our education and why educators and especially the academic leaders must really be very proactive or must really be, well, fast in terms of thinking and very fast in innovating. The coronavirus related disruption should give educators time to rethink our sector. And true enough, because you see, if the principal, or in the case of a big school like us, if the VP ACAD is not proactive, I tell you, they must still be thinking as of this time. For us in St. Louis, as early as April, we are ready for next school year because we have policies in place which are adjusted from the traditional ones because we took this chance of having rested and then eventually meeting 2.5 hours of a week when from ECQ we were elevated to GCQ and eventually into MGCQ. We took all these opportunities to restudy our procedures, to restudy all our policies, and eventually I can easily tell you that all our policies are in place and ready to be used for the first semester school year 2020-2021. But in fact, I'd like to tell you that because we have a higher education part of the university, we have a college, that in fact, we are now really implementing the new policies during this short term, or what we call originally would be like the summer term. The second reflection, technology has stepped into the breach and will continue to play a key role in educating future generations. It is a fact that if a school will not go into technology, that you will be lagging behind. And I tell you, even if I have been traditionally prepared as a teacher education graduate myself, I'd like to tell you that there will always be a difference of the tradition to the technology that we are in. I'm not IT, but as a teacher education graduate, I know my pedagogies, and with my benchmarking sessions, which was shared in the introduction, I did benchmarking in Malaysia, some parts of Thailand, and eventually even in the United States. And in fact, I have seen another paid LMS. I did a day training on Schoology. And well, that is to tell you that if the academic leader is open to all possibilities, he must be able to see all brands of learning platforms, new pedagogies for that matter. That will really work well to the stakeholders and the school or the university in general. Third reflection, in a world where knowledge is mouse click away, the role of educator must change too. Well, all of these three important bullet points on the impact of COVID to education, we have embraced this. This is part of the World Economic Forum 2020 pronouncement, or gems of wisdom, which schools must really take into consideration. And therefore, because indeed we are really mouse click away in everything that we do, I can tell you I have delivered several webinars already, most of which they are asking me how we did our flexible learning. And this will be part of the major sharing that I will do so that all principals are listening to me. Begin to also change already your mind. Change your mind, change your thinking. And it may be old, but think outside of the box. Well, we have seen that in Management 101, that again, what we need in terms of leaders in education today are those who are open to new ways of doing things. Because after all, even me as an advocate of 21st century education will always have to say that it's a continuing challenge that we must develop the forces among our learners, which many schools I know have not even started for that matter. I'll share a bit more on this as I go along with my presentation. Here, I can tell you that in fact, prior to COVID, the different basic education institutions, or HEIs, or higher education institutions, were only starting and on or planning to catch up, making their institutions adapt to the concept of 21st century education. On the right part of the slide, you will know that we really need to develop, as early as their basic education, life and career skills, learning and innovation skills, information, media, and technology skills. And we have embraced this framework for 21st century learning, well, hand in hand with adapting new pedagogies and new modalities of learning. Moving further, well, this is the big framework, which we said that schools must also, if you want to adapt to flexible learning, will now begin to look into your standards and assessments, your curriculum and instruction, the ongoing professional development, or if there were no professional development programs in the past, you must start doing it, and then try to look also into the learning environment. I've been saying all this 2 months because we have continuing programs for our faculty in all levels. And when I say in all levels, really, from kindergarten up to the graduate school, we're doing training for our faculty. Nearly every week, we have 2 training programs to prepare our new and our old or traditional teachers. And I'd like to tell you that now we say St. Louis is not in the school physically, but there's University of St. Louis in the cloud. And I always smile at the thought that when I say there is St. Louis School in the cloud, also because even the administrative processes, believe me, are now also in the cloud. The deans, the principals work as if they're facing the students and can be a very good input as well. Did you know that we're able to elect our officers for next school year using NEO LMS? Interesting, because you see, now there's a minimal fee students pay for this, and then you can have other accessories, and you can check the icons. I'll show you a little bit of that later on, where the school can be helped not only in terms of academics, but there are also processes by which you can use NEO LMS. Now, I'm not going to discuss en toto this slide here, but just to mention to you that we belong to different generations, even academic administrators or even the leaders, you belong to different generations, and there can be like a detach, or there can be a divide between our learners and us administrators and teachers. So if we are really born before 1980, well, I can easily tell you I'm born 1969. I belong to Generation X. far from the present generation of learners that we have, the generation, say, of 2001 and 2015. Well, I've been born to just emails and face-to-face meetings, but because I have to be proactive and I have to change my mind, my way of thinking, and my way of administering our school, I really have to adapt to technologies. We have experts in IT. They sit down with us. We have employed them with us. We made them heads of our learning management system, for instance. And that's why it is really very easy. It's just opening your mind to the reality that if you don't know how to operate the laptop, you begin to get a small training, or like subject yourself to a training, because again, you cannot lead a school, much less, no? You cannot lead an online learning school if you yourself as an administrator will not even know what is inside the learning management platform, for instance. So again, our challenge is we're faced with Generation Z, who would like Twitter, who would like to talk about anything under the sun in Zoom, and who would like anything that should really be technology, anything that has to be with gadgets. Well, I also mentioned here because there might be like schools who have also college that, again, even the kind of skills that are required of our Gen Z must also be part of our teaching, and therefore necessarily part of your strategic direction to take. We may have another opportunity later on to talk separately on what skills we really need to develop among our basic education students, probably in another forum. So we're down to what flexible learning is, because you see, even addressing many school administrators recently, some of them have not really embraced flexible learning. But for me, as a very practical school administrator, I can operationally give my own definition by saying that flexible learning is allowing every learner in your school to learn in any way possible, in any part of his home, in any part of the province where he is coming from, at any given time, in any possible opportunity past. So again, flexible learning can be a method. You say it can be a system because we can build in modalities within the flexible learning system. And well, with space, students may be given dedicated breakout rooms to work collaboratively, which in ordinary condition, when you do blended learning in a school setting where there's face-to-face, well, normally the school would have afforded as small spaces where students can do their discussions. But you see, well, St. Louis had several learning halls or learning spaces outside of the classroom, because at that time we said there must really be collaboration because we need to develop the forces of 21st century. And again, now we cannot ask our students to use our learning halls or our learning spaces or our 21st century parks, as I call them, because we put more benches, more tables, so that there are Wi-Fi areas within which students can really do their discussions. But meanwhile, you cannot do that now. But using a platform, there can be group dynamic activities where students can still relate with one another, exchange their thoughts, all built in into the system using our NEO LMS. Well, one of the things I'd like to just mention on flexible learning conceptually would be it refers to the ability to customize one's space, one's place, and one's mode of learning. Well, I'd like to mention here that I have 4 children as introduced. They are all students of our university, 2 are college, 1 senior high, and 1 junior high. I'd like to alert you that because of several peculiarities, as school administrators, we really have to address these peculiarities or kind of characteristics of our learners based on connectivity, based on learning style. And I can easily pinpoint that two of my four children, two of them are nocturnal learners. They start their lessons at 10 o'clock and sleep after breakfast the next day. The two others, they work the whole day and then in the evening take a rest. Now, as a school administrator and a parent, as a father, I can only support my children with the change in their learning styles. And again, going further, because of connectivity, even as school administrators have also to take note that in far-flung towns, because USL is in the city, in far-flung towns, connectivity can be a problem such that learners can only access a good connection in the evening or early in the morning. And so even their learning can also be changed. Now, are you ready to give that opportunity to the learners if they can only learn in the middle of the night or early in the morning? That will be part of the exciting story that I will continue to tell. Again, we are addressing learners who have three classifications. Okay, they may belong to fully connected, to partially connected, to no connection at all. See, if you have a fiber connection, your student can easily fully connect. If you kind of work on a mobile data or depend on these telecommunications, then you can be like partially connected. But there are those who do not have even a cell phone and necessarily they're not connected. And flexible learning must address all of these three kinds of learners. And that will be part of the story I will continue to tell. Now, I'll share the flexible learning milestones of USL so that you too, as school administrators, especially the school administrators who are listening to me, our journey is beautiful because it is not that if you decide tomorrow to adapt, that you will have good stories to tell. My story is more than 3 years. But even prior to this story of more than 3 years, when we adopted LMS, we had our own stories prior to that of using blended learning. Again, number one, USL made use of electronic platform of learning based on a system developed by our own people. Well, you know the story is that only the IT people made use of the one that is being developed. Some few others, and I can only count in my fingers, they use free versions of Moodle and Modo. In short, that did not succeed. Number two, USL, aware of the developments in education and also because of our trust to globalize, we embarked in 2016 the adoption of a platform, the learning management system, that should no longer be the free versions, that should no longer be the ones developed by our people because it was not friendly. The students need to phone in every now and then to be able to get connected or to be able to follow the directions using the developed platform. It's quick, but I'd like to tell you that with LMS, with the new LMS, which we adopted eventually after the benchmarking, which I shared earlier, that the beautiful story of our online learning and our flexible learning, for that matter, can be like patterned from, can be your basis as school administrators in making your decisions too. Because, you know, after I did this seminar to Region 2 and some parts of CAR, many schools started to call me up and would like to learn specific details on how we did it. So by adapting learning management system, it was part of our strategic direction as a university to really make our school full 21st century education institution, promoting the development of the skills, especially of learning and innovation, information and media literacy, which is very basic now to all our learners, and of course, life and career. So even all of these three skills of learning, we needed to address hand in hand with introducing technology. We allowed the development of forces, as I've said, and this is basic in all schools. And when you adapt to NEO LMS later on, part of the things that you will really anchor, the kind of pedagogy you will use, and the kind of training that you will use for your teachers will be the development of critical thinking, of communication, creativity, and collaboration. There can be a very static LMS material. You upload your PowerPoint and stops there. But you see, there will be no formal communication of all sorts. You may not be develop, you may not develop rather good communication skills because there's no opportunity for exchange of thoughts. Whereas technology can allow this to happen. And that's why there can be specific sharing that we can do along this thinking. We also did reforms because we really wanted that when we say we are 21st century education school, then things that we do, our offerings must also be improved. Well, we introduced robotics from kindergarten up to junior high school. And for senior high school, we enhanced it with computer science, and we went higher than what DepEd would prescribe and added more topics because also we wanted our learners to really be 4Cs equipped, one of which is like communication. And we really needed to say that the advantage of USL graduate is he can speak in English, he can speak in Filipino, and must also know one foreign language. And so even that, I tell you, if you say I adapt a 21st century learning skill, we use technology, but hand in hand, there should be curricular reforms as well. Now we have foreign language from elementary up to college. Well,
Dr. Pattaguan, maybe we can wrap up.
yeah, okay. So uh, uh, thank you, Flo. Uh, okay. Now, as to wrap up, well, I will just have a rundown of my presentation. Just to mention you now that uh, when uh, when I presented our platform using our Neo LMS, well, I was talking a little bit about how we can use all of this. If you see the ad assessment slide in here, there's quiz online and so on. So I think I have shared something else. I hope there will be an opportunity to share even more because it should be interesting to note, no? So I'll make it fast then, um, just to go to just summary. So as advice. So uh, we made use of Neo LMS as part of our flexible learning arrangement from senior high up to the graduate school. But during the ECQ, we made a little adjustments because elementary and junior high school, well, basically were face-to-face. But eventually, we did modified online and we made use of other platforms, Messenger, Facebook, emails, among others. And just to show to you why would we not go into uh, Messenger, Facebook, email? Why go straight to a platform? Well, it should be easy. This is rundown already. I'm making myself quick in the presentation. These are outputs of my daughter in junior high school, which she needs to submit to her teacher via Messenger when LMS was not yet in their system. Because now University of St. Louis, from elementary to graduate school, will adopt Neo LMS. And I'd like to mention here that the difficulty of the teacher receiving 320 papers every day from just one output of, from just one week lesson. And here, well, I would have wished I had more time to tell you this, because you will see that you have put a check on all these new LMS, all the things that you would want to happen in the classroom: teaching and learning content, student engagement, assessment monitoring, even learners' privacy. They are all in the platform, which should, again, be the reason why you're adapting to it. No? So I will go now to the last two slides. Forgive me, but when I begin to share good things, I said this to Arlene and the rest yesterday. Uh, well, we wanted that all the rest will also learn from this good experience, hoping I would have longer time to present this to you. Well, as we continue for 2020, 2021, getting feedbacks, because we did a survey to parents, to our students, and our teachers, checking their connectivity, checking their issues, we're able to come up with these actions, which we are now implementing for college so far. USL put up recording rooms for videotaping or recording of lectures. This should be important because, you see, if you use NEO LMS for the elementary, you should be able to like adjust your pedagogies. College, you can put your PowerPoint that does not talk. But for elementary or junior high, I'm sure it will be necessary that there would be videotaping of the lecture, or probably a teacher starts to dance and then we record that, because we need to like put that in the platform so that the learner can easily understand. Now, we have also helpline and all kinds of help that our students would need, which ordinarily would have been given. We have them. And then, well, other forms of other modalities of our flexible learning, we'll do correspondence learning. Well, you may have listened to this as part of distance education. And then we also do modular, therefore. Either that we produce the book or the module, or parents may come and get through USB or flash drive the lessons for the week for their children. Number four, USL will also explore possibilities for schools to to train also other schools using LMS. And I can just tell you that we have very good support staff. We have very good leaders of our LMS. And the good news, now we have teacher ambassadors who are models teaching IT or using IT or technology that can easily help us out. And it's easy to train now because every kind of training that we make, there are LMS ambassadors we have identified. USL will also explore more opportunities for continuing development programs. I told you, well, we never stop. Every week, there's training for all levels. It's because you cannot teach your teachers overnight. LMS training, good for one day. But again, we never stop training. We retrain and continue to retrain. Ladies and gentlemen, I would wish to end, and just like the first step of Neil Armstrong and company in the moon in 1969, I was not yet born, July 16. I say that one small step that every educator may take can mean why one giant leap for learners in your respective institutions. Think flexible, think online learning, but again, do not forget, because of connectivity, your online learning should be a combination of synchronous or asynchronous ways. By synchronous, this will be my last, because I forgot that. Synchronous, we do it for our examinations, teachers and students all at the same time in the platform. We time the tests. There's randomizing the test so that we ensure that the test is still is like sacred, I'd like to say. And for those who cannot be connected because their connection can only be partial, we do asynchronous exams based on their time. But we have, again, policies in place to address how we should be able to handle those students who learn where connection is strong and those students who learn where there's only partial connection. I can probably entertain questions later on and probably share more stories as we go along. With that as advice, I will end my presentation. Thank you, Abiva, and thank you, Cypher Learning.